We will discuss tonight, Mirz Hashem, the idea of healing in the Talmud, healing in the Zohar, and healing how Hasidus interprets it, and also how over the years, in the years of the Rebbe's leadership, how the Lubavitcher Rebbe actually approached medicine. Some things I heard from my father firsthand. As mentioned earlier, he was 40 years a physician by the Rebbe, in the Rebbe's household, and the Rebbe personally, and then also hearing from others stories that took place with my father, that the Rebbe would refer people to my father, and there were many miracles that were taking place at the time also, because many of these things actually, medically speaking, were not really so logical. It was more something that the Rebbe just needed a channel of a doctor, an authority in medicine that should issue a verdict, and then the Rebbe did his part. So beginning from the Talmud, we find in different tractates, there are 3 tractates that discuss the idea of medicine. One is in the tractate of Shabbos, one is the tractate of Gittin, and one is the tractate of Avodah Zarah. These are the 3 names of the tractates. In Shabbos, it is page 109, and also in a later page, 129a, it discusses the union of drawing blood, taking out the unhealthy blood from a person. In the tractate of Gittin, it is page 68b, and it goes on for quite a while, speaking about different remedies. And in the tractate of Avodah Zarah, it is in page 28a, discussing different ideas, different remedies, cures. And as we'll discuss further, that some of these remedies are not really working today, are not effective today. And this really brings out a very interesting talk that the Rebbe had in regards to the eternity of Torah. If everything in Torah is eternal, as the Rambam writes, so how is it that certain medications are not effective today? They're not doable because they're physically they're not working. So we'll discuss it a little later, but first we'll discuss a certain controversy that took place amongst the great leaders, the great masters in the Jewish nation, namely the Rambam, the Maimonides, and Nachmanides, and the Ibn Ezra. The Ibn Ezra, who is the third one, and all of them were physicians, and they had a very interesting difference in opinion in regards to medicine. And the question that they dealt with was, is a person permitted to consult a doctor when they have a problem? Or is it that they need to approach a wise person or a prophet and ask what is wrong in the spiritual channels, and when that person will clear them and tell them what's happening in the spiritual channels, so then automatically, simultaneously, the person will be cured? Namely, the Ramban and the Ibn Ezra, which basically the Ramban is the one that is the Nachmanides, Rav Moshe ben Nachman, and the Ibn Ezra, who is also a commentary on the Chumash, on the 5 books of Moses. Happens to be that this week is the parsha of this week. In 2 words, discusses the union of healing. In 2 words of a whole Torah portion, which has in itself, if I'm not mistaken, 60 commandments. There are 3 Torah portions in Torah that have 60 commandments. That's what the Medrash tells us in anthology. So, Mishpatim has 2 words, and on these 2 words is based that a doctor is permitted to cure, and that is Verape Yerape. Verape Yerape, that he should get cured. Rashi says this means that whoever hurt a person, he should pay the medical bills. But in the Talmud, and as our sages passed it on to us, it tells us that this means melamed shanitna mekan shanitna rishus l'reifel l'rapis. From this we derive that a physician is permitted to cure. Why should a doctor not be permitted to cure? Is because if we consider that this is a punishment from above, a divine punishment, so how should a doctor intervene in the middle and try to cure the person if the person has to take care of it on a different level, on a different standard? So getting back to the controversy, Rab Moshe ben Nachman, the Nachmanides, and Reb Ezra feel that for eternal problems, a person should not turn to a doctor. Only for something external, dermatology, other problems, but not something internal. Something that's internal, a person should seek spiritual guidance. And therefore, and that is how they will actually cure this problem. I don't know what they made money from, if this is that they themselves told people not to come to them. This was the Nachmanides and the Even Ezra. And the Even Ezra, it's known that he had a very bad luck with livelihood. Whatever he did didn't work. He says whatever he did, everything stopped. He started a certain profession, it went down. He says I should really be sowing tachrichim. He says what they addressed the dead people, in other words, he says what they addressed dead people, he says people will stop dying. He says whatever he did went wrong. He was wandering from one place to another. He was a big poet. He wrote a lot of poems. Wow. And he wrote a lot of svarim, a lot of books on the Chumash, on the 5 books of Moses. He has a very interesting approach. And other svarim that are, some are around today, some not. The Rambam feels no, that a person should seek a physician for internal problems and for external problems. What is the reason, and what did they base it on, the Nachmanides and the Even Ezra, not to, his name was Reb Avraham ben Ezra. So in Hebrew is written Reish Aleph Beis Ayin, in an acronym, abbreviation. And the Rambam is written Reish Mem Beis Langenun, Nun Sofit, which basically is the Russian Teves, the acronym Rab Moshe ben Nachman. Now, the arguments that they have, or at least they base it on that, are 2 things that are mentioned. One is mentioned in the prophets, and one is mentioned in the Talmud, in one of the Mishnahs in the Talmud. Mishnahs in Talmud. In the prophet it says that in regards to King Asa, it says that it was considered a sin that he turned to doctors. And therefore they feel that he should have turned to the Almighty, and this is how he should have taken care of his problem. The Ramban brings another argument. And his argument is that the Mishnah tells us in the Talmud in Psachim, in the tractate of Psachim, that the king Chizkiyahu hid away the remedy book. Gona Sefer HaRefuos, he hid the remedy book. So that means that people shouldn't be involved in medicine. He felt that because if people are going to use it, they're going to rely completely on nature, and therefore he felt that this might turn them away from the Almighty, from belief in the Almighty, relying on the Almighty, so therefore he hid it away. Comes the Rambam and says, this wasn't the case here. The book that he hid was not a remedy book, it was not a medical book. It was a book telling a person what stars he should relate to, what planets he should relate to, and when he has the image of that planet in his mind, that will help for the healing. So the Rambam says that this is what Chizkiyahu HaMelech was very cautious about. He felt that people might be misled and they'll start serving idols. Bowing down to idols and bowing down to planets, which actually the whole idea of idols, the Maimonides says, in the laws, in the introduction to the laws of idols, that it started from the planets. Originally they were considered channels. Later they were considered by people, if they're already channels, maybe they already give their own energy. So basically this is what the Rambam says Chizkiyahu HaMelech was concerned about. In regards to King Asa, the Rambam says, what's the problem? He says if somebody is hungry and he's going to eat bread, he's going to lose belief in God. He's going to he's going to stop believing in the Almighty. He needs to, when he's hungry, he buys bread, and he'll thank the Almighty that enabled him to buy the bread, that somebody should be able to bake the bread, prepare the bread. One does not take away from the other. He says the same thing in regards to medicine. A person will deal with medicine, does not take away the belief in the Almighty. So this is the Rambam's argument. The Rebbe writes in a letter in 1951, writing the first letters from the year already of his leadership, right after the beginning of assuming leadership, that there is the controversy as known, and today we follow Maimonides, that a person seeks a physician in regards to internal problems and in regards to external problems. But the person looks at the physician, that the physician is the channel through which the remedy and the healing takes place. So therefore a person needs to pray to the Almighty that the physician should be successful, and it should be the right physician, the right emissary, as it's referred to, and he should have the right medication. This is basically the controversy amongst the great pillars in the Rambam and Ramban and the Ibn Ezra, the three of them. They wrote many svarim, and we follow their guidance in many different things that they authored on the 5 books of Moses and other things that they wrote on the Talmud, Halacha. I mean, the Rambam Maimonides is like an endless thing. It's an endless how much his influence in regards to his writings on many different subjects. It's interesting to note. I always mentioned it as a sarcastic statement, but it's actually something which holds water, because when you think about it today, many yeshivas study the Rambam, they study Maimonides, they study his laws, and it comes to one point, not one point, many points. That many of them, the deans in different yeshivas, the different scholars in the yeshivas, they teach their students, and they actually concentrate and delve into the words of the Rambam. What did the Rambam mean with this word, with that word? And if we should take today all the books that were authored on the Rambam, it's a whole library. It's like everybody wrote something. Oh, he wrote his explanations and elaborations. The other one wrote a different book. Everyone wrote chidushim, as they say, new things. They say the Rambam would walk in and he would see all these books. He would say, I don't know what you were, if you're thinking that I was thinking what you're writing. You know, oh, the Rambam meant this, the Rambam meant that. So the question is, some of these things are true. So what happened? Did the Rambam think about it or not? So there's an interesting answer that's given from one of the codifiers of the law many years ago. And it's Tzemach Tzedek, the third leader of Chabad, brings him in one of the responses. And he says, the Rambam wrote with a certain intuition. And that intuition was basically a certain, actually, it was an intuition that was given from the Almighty. And this included everything. So therefore, when a person comes 1,000 years later and says, well, the Rambam meant this, the Rambam meant that, it could very well be. But the Rambam didn't, in a conscientious way, think about it, because he would never finish.